Hi there YouTube, my name is Morrison America, and in this video is giving my thoughts and opinions about what I would do for endgame for global PSO2. Now there's different scenarios I'm going to point out. You can look in the description for that time skip. However, I will state this: if you do not want spoilers, you may want to exit out. And if you watch this video, note that this is my opinions and my thoughts and what I would do if I was playing global. Note that I play on the Japanese more than global. I did give global a shot, it's just that couldn't stand it, and I'm too old to actually try to micromanage a bunch of video games now. So I'm just staying on the Japanese side. However, I've been keeping tabs on what is going on global. A lot of you guys, when I was streaming, asked like, what are my thoughts and opinions about what weapon to go for, and this video is going to address that. But once again, this will have spoilers, and this is my thoughts and opinions, depending on different scenarios. So the one that I'm gonna highlight right now is pretty much my thoughts and opinions if I have both the knowledge of the Japanese and global. Why? Because that does play a factor to how you might play the game. If I play on the Japanese PS2 and they did this over here on the Japanese PS2, and if I looked on what global's been doing, and if I have been playing on global and I realize all these patterns and trends, I would actually wait it out. I would wait it out because, one, I would have a good chunk of resources to go for the things that would matter in terms of endgame. Secondly, it's just that I might as well wait because there's certain events over here in the Japanese PS2 kicked in, and some of them did play out over there in the global. Then most likely I'll wait to see if they will spoil us. Note that global is spoiling you guys. You are on a 3x 4x speed. Not only that, you guys are getting a lot of extra goodies compared to what the Japanese PS2 went through. So I would wait it out. I would wait it out until they start to give out a bunch of free stuff or make a lot of things that are kind of tedious right now a bit easier. But once again, that depends on you. If you want to play the game how you want to play, go ahead and do that. If you want to try to farm stuff because it's the moment to go ahead and do that as well. It's entirely up to you. You're the final decision. I'm just giving you guys my thoughts and opinions and stuff, and you take it how it is. And you use this thing to your advantage, or you can just dump it in the trash can and once again go back to your plan. But if I have both knowledge of it, I'll just wait it out. Instead of going for the Liberate to Rivalate, I will wait it out and save the resources up for the Lightweaver. Same can be said with the Stil and Puras. And I'm going to go into more of a technical point and show you guys the resources you need to get them. Now, if I was playing on global currently, and if I didn't know about the Japanese PS2, I would still wait it out. Just because, one, they might give out a Revalate for free later. And once again, if I had knowledge of the Japanese PS2 did give a free Trailblazer and a Revalate in the, somewhere around like 2020, they did give it out for the Japanese side. So, if I had knowledge of that, I would wait it out over in global, but if I was strictly playing global without any knowledge for the Japanese PS2, I would wait it out because of what happened with the Atlas EX. You guys were farming a good chunk of materials in episode 5, and then guess what? Around the corner, they release Atlas EX for free for all players. Now, you did have to do the objectives, but it was a fixed way to get free items that allowed you to get Atlas EX 15 star. So if they do the same thing with the Rivalate, I would just wait it out. That means I can save my resources for something else. And you might be saying, you know, I wouldn't do that more just because I'm on a farm for it currently and all that. That is on you, but for me, I would personally wait it out, especially with how global is doing. And in all honesty, if I really want to save money, especially with how the market is in terms of cosmetics, I would definitely gamble on these various concepts and facts that, hey, look, global's get spoilers. Hopefully, they get to add more stuff. Hopefully, they get to add free items. They get to give out free items, hopefully. Now, this is, once again, gambling on that sheer thought. And if you're not a gambler, you might not be a big fan of it. But I wouldn't mind doing that, especially with the trends and patterns that have happened over there in global. So that's just my take on it. Now, if I did want to try to farm for everything, I would have to be farming nonstop. And in all honesty, since I'm an adult and I got other shit to do, I don't have that time to do that. So once again, I'm just going to gamble on that thought. And, you know, if I didn't get those previous weapons, then so be it. I would rather get the end game stuff compared to like the stuff that's kind of questionable and it's not going to be able to actually complement or excel and, excel or just, you know, allow me to go at my best. Or at least allow me to do a lot more customization than what it is. The Rivalate is good, especially with the pot, but I would rather go for the end game just because 5 S-class abilities have a lot more appeal compared to 2 S-class abilities. These 2 S-class abilities, the Rivalate can have its S4 and S5, but it can be very specific. And not only that, it's only 2 S-class abilities compared to 5 S-class abilities. Once again, that's my personal opinion about it. You guys have to figure out what you would want to do. Also, not only that, when it comes to like all the other weapon series before you hit the endgame one, especially, it will eat up a lot of resources. But once again, if I didn't have any knowledge about the Japanese PSO2, I wouldn't know that. But once again, I would actually gamble on the thought of waiting it out. What I would do is just focus on other means to try to get a good chunk of Meseta, like gambling with the market or just touring around with augmenting or fixing, and just pay attention to like certain things that might be expensive right now that might not be as expensive. But once again, this depends on various factors. Like, if I was just ignorant to Japanese PSO2 and I didn't look a bit ahead of myself and I was playing the game blind, I would just wait. I would wait and just stock up on a lot of things. I would do the quests that are being spammed, but I would just hoard the shit out of everything. Note that if you see my storages over here in the Japanese PSO2, I hoard a good chunk of unit fodder. Now, I'm not a big weapon fodder guy, especially in terms of augments and fixing, but for units, I'll hoard the living shit out of them because I know how valuable they are. But yeah, and once again, if I was playing Global PSO2 with both knowledge of Japanese and Global, then I would actually just capitalize on all these things that people may not be aware of. Note that this has been a thing. I've been telling you guys indirectly and just hinting at it every now and then in my videos where people have already capitalized on this. And if you don't know what I mean, I might make a separate video addressing it. Anyways, enough of my chit chat and just my personal thoughts. Let me get into the actual showcase of these things. Once again, this is a spoiler, so avert your eyes. And note that if you don't have a lot of materials to do these conversions, don't worry about it. Divide Quest is going to answer that. If you don't know what Divide Quest is and you don't want to see the actual video, there is a raw video footage that I did of Divide Quest. It's like a 2-hour run above my head or in the description. That pretty much showed you guys what you will deal with in terms of endgame. It is quite long because it does do a lot of things. I will have a shortened video going over what you would want to do for Divide Quest, but pretty much Divide Quest will give you everything you need for all these future weapon upgrades. It's just that you need to be consistent with it. You need to farm it. It is good to farm. It's just that, once again, you need to make time to do that. And if you didn't farm as much currently, then that is your go-to when it is out. That's the thing you will spam the living shit out of, because there's so many perks and benefits for it, especially when it comes to getting some of the endgame stuff. So, this is where I talk about weapons and units. Now, for units, currently right now, you guys have most of, you have almost all of these 30 stars. The only one you don't have is the crafts, and this is where I would say I would be waiting for the crafts. Now, if I was in certain situations, let's say I've been farming a lot of Persona ultra hard quests. If I was doing a lot of, well, I don't know if Ultra Hard's out. When I release this video, I don't know if it's out. So the thing is, if there's the Persona emergency quest, and if I can get triggers for these especially, guess what? I'm just gonna farm this thing because it's pretty much high up there. And compared to the other 2 unit pieces that are pretty good in terms of the 13-star rarity, like the Aphistia, then the Revalate unit piece, I would skip over these. Why? Because these eat up a good chunk of resources. Now, this is only for one piece. You still need to do it for the other pieces as well. So if you focus on the rear, guess what? All these materials will be needed for the leg and the arm as well. I would skip this. I would just honestly skip this and just keep the light stream instead, because compared to these resources, this isn't bad. What else am I going to do with Airboat Stones? I'm not going to do anything else other than try to get like certain weapon upgrades. But if I already have a Trailblazer, or like 2 of them, why would I want to try to push for a 3rd one? No. I'm just going to focus on this, use the stones for this, and just leave this 13-star, and then wait for this particular unit piece. Now, there are some other unit pieces that I would talk about, especially this thing over here, reason to why you would want to get it, but separate video for that. But for unit pieces, yeah, I'll just stick to the light stream. Why do I want to go for some of these other ones? Now, if I don't have a lot of the light stream stuff, and now if I farmed in the beginning of episode 5, I might just stick with the Scaval. Or let's say I'm just brand new, period, and I don't have a good 13-star unit set yet. All I will do is wait for Sega to give out a bunch of rainbow keys or update the battle pass, which can give out rainbow keys. I would farm the rainbow keys and see if I can actually get a free Scaval set from there. And if I'm lucky, it might be able to go to like a 5-slot, 6-slot drop or even higher, and that means I can toy around with it and just keep it until I get the endgame units. So that's just my thoughts and opinions and my approach when it comes to the unit stuff. If I was farming Persona a lot and if I wanted to do this run, then I would try to, one, get the unit piece, upgrade it accordingly, and then get it to the 13 star and try to do for the other, other pieces as well, like the arm and the leg. But if I don't want to do that and I just want to be a bit lax about it, I might go for the Scaval instead to be really cheap about it. I could use one of these, but once again, I wouldn't do it just because of the fact that it's going to eat up a good chunk of resources. Now, will you use these resources for something else? Yes. The Pure Photons Ultimate Boosters is yes, these two. Not as much, but once again, this depends on your situation. If you did farm a bunch and if you did desynthesize before the release of these units, then you might be in a better situation where it's not going to be as bad and you can do these upgrades. It's entirely up to you, but in terms of how I would do it, especially if I was playing global, blind, and just, trying to figure out what is most convenient to farm for, I would just most likely aim for the light stream and just stick with that until I get that endgame piece. Or just wait until that certain endgame unit piece comes out if I, once again, didn't have knowledge. Now, if I did have knowledge, I'll go for the light stream regardless and then just wait it out till I get that endgame unit. Or that last unit series. Question mark. I don't know if that is the last unit series just because you might add more later on. I don't know. I highly doubt it, but that's just me guessing out of my ass. So this is where I talk about weapons. Now, I'm going to talk with the gun slash because the gun slash is quite useful due to the fact that it does not go into very specific details on what class cube you need to exchange. It can be used for all classes. So guess what? If you have a lot of Braver X cubes and Phantom X cubes, or Brave X cubes and Hero X cubes, guess what? This gun slash will allow you to use both of those types without any restriction. However, with something like the, let's go with the, this is the sabers, or dual saber. No, not dual saber, double saber. The thing about these, you'll notice that it will be very specific and ask for a fighter and a 12 X cube. So this is something you may want to take note of, especially if you need to make an Ayer weapon, and then go into a Lightweaver. I would most likely start with a gun slash first and then work my way to the Lightweaver. So yeah, the next weapon series after the Revalate will be the Puras and Stil. I don't know if they will have that same name. I did make a video explaining how to go about getting these. You can look in the upper right corner above my head or in the description. Then there's the Ayer and the Crass. So if I just look at the resources, I would just skip all of them. I would skip all of them, especially depending on time span, my own stuff that I'm doing in real life and stuff. I would just wait. Just because these do eat up a good chunk of stuff, and if they're going to update the battle pass and if they give more ways to get this Lightweaver weapon, I would want to have as many resources as I can to get it. So let me talk about the Ayer and Lightweaver then. So the Ayer weapon, note that this is not at plus 35. This is going to be an issue, especially if you don't have grind caps. Now, if you do get grind caps, hold onto them. You might want different weapon ones as well. Do not exchange your class X cubes for these weapon cap stuff. No, wait till the game drops it naturally, or there's just an easy way to try to farm for it. Do not trade in your class cubes for those goddamn those weapon specific grind caps. No, wait for a big event or something that can promote and drop those grind caps. Like Rainbow Quest does have a chance to drop them, so I would wait it out. But the problem with this is that, once again, it is not at a 35. So if it's not at a 35, then you do need to times all these resources by 6. But once again, hopefully, and most likely, Global will give you grind caps. I don't know how, but they will eventually do that to make it a bit easier. So let's assume that I didn't need to push this to plus 35 by feeding multiple dupes of this and using all these resources. So I would only spend like 20 Demonia stones, which is pretty much the emergency quest currency, like how Persona is with their stuff. The same can be said with the Ayer and the Lightweaver. 50 Emerald, 100 Plamias, 200 X cubes, Lumen Fragments 200, and Ultimate Booster 30. Yeah, if you don't have a lot of these, don't worry about it. Once again, you got Divide Quest. Divide Quest is going to tackle a lot of these things over here, especially the Plamia, since Divide Quests do drop a lot of 14 stars, and if you are doing a full run, it's going to give you a lot. Most of the time, I have like a full storage when I try to do one full run. But if I only spent this much, that's good on my part, especially if I don't need to times this by 5 or 6. Yeah, I don't need to use as many. Now, here comes the grand issue, getting the Lightweaver. Now, the Lightweaver requires the Ayer weapon, but it also requires 150 of the Demo Stones and needs an Eyestone. You cannot upgrade an Ayer to a Lightweaver without that Eyestone. It's pretty much like your Atlas EX upgrade, your Lightstream upgrade, and your Rivalate upgrade. You will need that stone. You need 4 grain crystals, 50 diehards, and 300 class X cube. Now, once again, since it's the gun slash, it's not very specific, but if it was a different weapon series or weapon type, it will ask for something like fighter X cubes, gunner X cubes, etc., etc. Now, if you're not familiar with the conversion with grain crystal, I will have a separate video just emphasizing on that later. But the grain crystal might be a slight issue if you're not actively farming Divide Quest, because you do need a good chunk of these. There are alternative ways to get these grain crystals, especially with the shop and then also titles, but once again, that depends on certain situations. If I wasn't farming as much, and if I'm not, yeah, if I wasn't farming as much, that's the big part, then I would actually be holding on a lot of my resources just for these weapon series over here. I would just, once again, ignore these. Now, you might be saying, Morph, getting the Puras and Stil, it doesn't, you know, it does eat up a lot of resources, but they also use modules. This thing does not require modules. This is where I would have to point to the units. Now, if I was playing on global and I wasn't aware of this, then yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you guys like, hey, look, the modules can be used for the units as well. That's if I was ignorant. Now, since I'm now bringing up the fact that if I knew both Japanese and global, I will most likely skip over the Puros and the Stil just because I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna try to get these unit pieces as soon as possible. And these unit pieces require modules, and it's a good chunk of them too. So if you look at the resources you need to trade in so you can get like the Stil upgrade, it's roughly around the same with these things over here, minus the Shiva. So if we go back over here to the striking weapons, go to the gun slash and look at the Stil, you see it requires 25, 25, 50. Now, I will make a separate video going further into those crass units because they do have different conversions. But for that rear piece, you saw it needs 25 Shiva modules, 25 Aruna Metra, then 50 Exocore, and that's pretty much the same like the Stil. I would skip over that because even though I could buy them off of the market, you can buy modules off of the market, I don't need to waste my Meseta on that. I would rather just, once again, put the resources into what I need to do, especially once endgame is over there in global. But that's just my approach. So pretty much because of that alone, I'm not going to go for it still. I could technically go for a Puros weapon, but here's the thing. With Primordial Darkness, the specific emergency quest you need, where you need to get this certain currency, and then also if you do 50 kills on that guy, you get the Eyestone as well. If I'm going to be spamming that, there is a chance and a possibility for it to drop a Puros weapon. And it did drop at least 2 to 3 times over here when I was playing on the Japanese PSO2. So if there's a chance, then, you know, I might as well wait and see if I can get it to drop. There's no... Once again, this is just my opinion. There's no point for me to try to use a good chunk of my resources when I can gamble on the thought of, hey, look, this might drop when I spam this quest. And then once again, for the Reverie Library, I might skip over it just because, one, if Sega did what they did with the Atlas EX, they might give out free weapons, and I'll gamble on that thought. And I would just save those resources there. And yeah, that's it. That's it for this video. Now, once again, I was going to go a bit technical and do a bunch of edits and do all this stuff, but in all honesty, I don't feel like dwelling on this topic for a long time. And I'll just give you a dumbed down view of it. Now, if you do want to do some quick math though, or you want to figure out how much resources you need to get, I'm gonna look over all these weapon stuff. You can see the materials up there. Pause the video, write it down if you want to. But yeah, for the Liberate, you can see that it requires a good chunk of stuff. And then the Ayer and the Lightweaver, they will require some of these things that you would need to use. Same can be said with the good chunk of it can go to the Lightweaver and Ayer as well from the the Stil, the Puras. But the thing is, I would rather skip the Stil just because it does use those modules which I need for the unit upgrades instead, and I would rather hold off on those. I would hold off on getting a Stil and just aim for those unit pieces instead. The big issue with going for a Stil as well, it just eats up a lot of stupid fucking fragments, and I hate collecting fragments. You also need fragments for potential plus upgrades as well for your previous weapon series when they do get released over there in Global. Just keep that in mind. And then over here you can see the Ayer weapon. And then the Lightweaver. Now, the reason why, especially if I have knowledge of the Japanese PSO2 and the global PSO2, this might be a slight issue just because if I haven't been farming as much, especially in terms of class X cubes, I'm going to need to do that because there is a possibility that they will give another Eyestone over here on the Mission Pass Battle Pass in the future. And if they do give out a free Eyestone through these means, guess what? That means I can get another Lightweaver. So other than the 50 times kill, then that means you can get 2 Lightweavers right off the bat. And if I can get 2 Lightweavers off the bat, that means I would need certain resources to get them. And if, once again, we look at this, do 2 times all these things over here. You're going to need 8 Green Crystals. You're going to need 100 die arts, and then you're going to need 600 class cubes. If you go for the gun slash, it might be a bit easier depending on how active you've been playing. But yeah, that's the thing. The reason why I'm not being serious about this is because I don't know what your situation is. Because I know I chatted with a good chunk of you guys through my live streams and asked you guys, like, you guys get go for the Revalate, or you guys ask me about my thoughts and opinions. The problem is I don't know what your situation is. I don't know how many X cubes, class X cubes you have overall. I don't know if you guys are actually farming a bunch. I don't know if you guys are actually, you know, taking your sweet time with stuff. I just don't know. So that's why I'm a bit more lax about this. I was once again going to make a former video addressing it, but I'm not going to do that just because I seriously don't know what your situation is. For me personally, if I was over there in Global, I would have done the stuff that I mentioned to you guys. I would just wait it out. I would be patient. I would do this, depending on if I was aware of the Japanese PSO2 or if I wasn't aware of the Japanese PSO2. Either way, I'm going to gamble. And that's the thing I do need to talk about when it comes to PSO2 as well, just on the overall aspect of it. It's not just gambling and augmenting and fixing, it's gambling on 13 concepts and things that you can easily pick up and call out and say like, hey look, there's a chance that Sega might do this, and guess what? I did gamble on the fact that they're gonna give a Reverie, no, was it? Man, a Reverie, oh yeah, they do have a Reverie now. They do have a Reverie Catalyst? No, Reverie Receptor. Should be called that. And it's from PSO2. Yes, they did update it. Let me see if it does pop up. I know someone showed a screenshot of it, but there should be a new receptor now. Let me just see if it's up on the internet. I might pull up the Discord too. But I know someone mentioned it. I don't know where. I think it was over here. And someone just pointed it out. Ah, there we go. Why is this important? Well, if this thing is a Reverie Receptor, if you're familiar with Receptor abilities, this gives you a chance to try to transfer mana rev at a 10%. And once again, I kind of knew that they were going to do that, especially with how they added a Factor Receptor later on in this game. So gambling on these concepts and ideals can most likely help you in the long run. But once again, this is a gamble in itself. If you're wrong, then you're wrong. And it might hurt you, but overall, it's just you gambling on some of these positive things that will happen. And yeah, that's what happened. And pretty much I don't need to redo any of my units. I went for Absolute Glare in the beginning, despite what some people say, like, oh, you should have gone for Mana Reverie. I ignored that because I was like, they're going to do that. They're going to add something to make it easier. not only added a Reverie Receptor, now they also have that pop item I talked about. So out of all the abilities that have some worth behind it, the the glares are the big ones that people will still need and demand. And then guess what, if you're trying to make Guardian Soul, you can also make a good profit off of it, because there might be some people who may not want to fucking deal with that. And there are ways around getting Guardian Soul onto your weapons and units, especially over here in the Japanese PSO2. But anyways, that is it for this video. This is once again my thoughts and opinions about what weapons and units I would go for if I was playing over there in Global, and my mindset and approach. And maybe you guys can use this to your advantage as well. But yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.